All right, what's good, everybody? We are back with some more Pokemon Scarlet and Violet OU analysis. Had to take a couple days off, man. Just all kinds of heinous occurrences in the world of Smash Brothers, where I come from. The Smash World Tour finale being canceled by Nintendo. Kind of like a huge blow to the community. Just a lot of awful stuff going on. But, you know, time to get a little escape from that, little break. Let's talk about some developments in the Scarlet and Violet meta. This graphic just dropped from Smogon like 2 hours ago, maybe. So I just wanted to break it down. So on the left is the graphic from Smogon. And on the right is my personal opinions here that we're going to talk about. The Pokemon that I think are like on the up and up as of the most recent iteration of the meta, meaning the Palafin and Iron Bundle bands. The Pokemon that I think don't really change too much in terms of their performance, and then the Pokemon that I think are probably going to trend downward from this list. So we got 42 Pokemon, but only 38 that are currently legal. Fluttermane and Houndstone were banned first, so the Ghost, and then the Water guys, Palafin and Iron Bundle, were banned right after that. Yeah, so this graphic is composed of statistics spanning all of November, so really the entirety of the meta's lifespan, which started when the game came out 2 Fridays ago, and now it's December 1st, so they've officially got like monthly statistics technically, even though it's only been like, 12, 13 days. So let's talk about it. We got again, Fluttermane and Palafin at the top. Just the usage on these guys should tell you everything you need to know about them. If you weren't running them on your team, you were throwing. And the fact that they weren't even legal for like a good chunk of this time span and still had that kind of usage, man, that's just insane to think about, right? This was too fast and strong. This was too strong and bulky and impossible to break through. And the taunt set really set it over the edge. We started with the Choice Band set, and then the bulk up taunt leftover set is what sent Palafin into overdrive. So we're not going to spend any time talking about that. Let's talk about the real number one, the unofficial number one, but number one in our hearts is Great Tusk. This guy, man, I remember seeing another ground type that could set up and or remove hazards and or do a ton of damage and or be really bulky at number one in a list like this for many years. And of course I'm talking about Landorus Therian, right? They give me pretty similar vibes. Obviously Landorus has a lot of things that this guy doesn't, but this guy has some things that Landorus doesn't, right? So you don't have Intimidate, you don't have your flying type to be immune to earthquakes, you don't have Toxic, you don't have U-turn, and you don't have like the insane move pool that Landorus had. Landorus could technically do all kinds of weird tricks, Swords Dance, Explosion, like Power Herb Fly. There were all kinds of weird sets you could run on him. Weather Ball with Ice type to beat other Landorus guys, like Weather Ball in the Hail. But Great Tusk has a lot of the same strengths. Like, you hit really hard, even uninvested, but you'd probably just go full attack and speed on this guy. That said, you can also run a bulky Rocky Helmet set, or like Assault Vest, or Leftovers, or Boots. There's like a million sets that work on him. He can set up rocks, he can spin them away, and honestly, him having spin over Landorus' Defog is kind of lit, because you can boost your speed to now 450 after a rapid spin and actually be a pretty potent offensive threat. But Great Tusk, man, he's just like that glue mon, right? That's how people would describe Landorus Therian, is like he goes on any team, plays a crucial role, right? Say you pick 5 of your favorite mons and you're like, oh shit, I forgot a rapid spinner, or I forgot a stealth rocker, or I forgot both. Great Tusk has got your back. So I think there's almost no reason not to play this guy, right? Like, he's been on so many teams, literally almost 1 in 3 teams in the time that we've had the game. 1 day shy of 2 weeks, right? On basically a third of teams. Yeah, amazing mon though. He does so much. I've been running the Eject Pack set that I created myself. You use Headlong Rush or Close Combat, drop your own stats, and then you pivot out. It's great on calling out switches to stuff like Corviknight, or just anything that can live one of your guys, or one of your hits. You swing on it as long as they're not immune to it, right? Like, you click CC for Corviknights, you click Headlong Rush for anything that's Ghost type, and then you pivot out to your guy who outspeeds and or kills the mon that they switched in. But it only works once, and It's not perfect. I'm not here to preach about that set, but just shedding light on how this guy can be played in such a variety of different ways. And I have him in the mostly neutral category here. Like, I don't think he really goes up or down in usage because of the bans that have been made. If anything, he probably got better, right? Like, Fluttermane, Palafin, and Iron Bundle were all tough for him to deal with, but he's already number 1, right? So it's not like he's going up from that spot. He's probably still just going to stay number 1. And even in a meta with these guys, he was still so great. So, yeah, I don't think he's really going to shift up or down in the future. So next we got Chien-Pao, who I'm surprised has such a high usage rate, because at the very beginning of the game, I did kind of see this guy everywhere, but then, you know, Palafin was really hard for him to beat. Iron Bundle could take any stab and kill him back. Just like, it felt like he hadn't been figured out. You know, he hadn't been optimized. But now I think people are getting to that point, right? Where he's really making a huge resurgence in the past couple days. Palafin is gone. One of your number 1 threats that you don't have to worry about anymore. But he just matches up so well to the rest of the tier. Like, this can live in Ice Spinner at +0 and kill you back. But, you know, you just wait for this to be chipped and you destroy him. You destroy this. Corviknight, if you get +2 and he's chipped, you can destroy him. Glimmora, low-key, a little bit hard for you to kill, but still very killable. Roaring Moon, if they're not boosted, you just kill them with Ice Spinner. Kill it with Ice Spinner. This thing actually can low-key switch into you and live if you don't have Sacred Sword, which I feel like mostly they don't anymore. But, you know, just even against other top Pokemon, Chien-Pao is a menace, right? And you can clean up a whole game with this. If you get to +2 attack, +3 attack especially, I'm sorry, +4 attack, 3 times attack, you can just go wild and kill an entire screen with the mixture of like Sucker Punch, Ice Stab, and either Ice Shard or Crunch or Sacred Sword for coverage. There's quite a few sets that work on this guy. I personally like all stab moves though, like Ice Spinner or Icicle Crash, Sucker Punch, and Crunch with Sword Stance and Heavy Duty Boots. But you could play him with Band, you could play him with even Scarf if you're crazy, you could play him with Life Orb, you could play him with Boots. Yeah, I think I already said that you can play him with Boots, but whatever. Chien-Pao's crazy, and I think he is one of the biggest winners of the new meta, right? And there's some other mons that are in this category that are going to be on the up and up in usage that I think even further contribute to that. So we'll talk about that as we go. But then we got Gholdengo at number 5. I'm surprised he's only number 5. Even in a pre-ban era, this thing felt like it was on every team. I barely can recall not fighting against him. Hazards are so good in this meta, right? It's a very, very offensive meta. You want that chip to just get the opponent's tanky Pokemon in that range where your guy is going to be able to break through them and kill them. Punish them for switching around. And nobody is better at helping you keep your hazards up than Gholdengo. He blocks Rapid Spin, and he blocks Defog with his ability, Good as Gold. So this guy's amazing. I don't think he's really going up or down. So I put him in mostly neutral. Chien-Pao does counter him. Great Tusk kind of counters him, because you can knock off the Choice Scarf on the switch. If you're like, oh, they're going to Rapid Spin, and they just knock you off. Oh man, you're cooked now. That balloon is breaking, or that Choice Scarf is getting knocked off, and now you're ever so slightly slower than this guy, and he'll kill you. But otherwise, it's really hard to play around this guy. He hits so hard. Like, he's just strong enough and just fast enough with just good enough coverage. Ghost Fighting and Steel, all amazing types to have. You could Terra him to like Fighting or something. You know, I've seen Normal to win the Gholdengo 1v1, like the Gholdengo mirror match. And then you use Trick to disable their bulky guys that want to switch into you. Like Corv, yeah, he can switch in on any move against this, but do you want your Corv to now have a Choice Scarf for the rest of the game? Or your Clodsire, or your Ting-Lu? Like, any of the premier tanks have to fear this guy, because all it takes is a good read, and then you trick that away, and they're kind of cooked. And now they lose a big switch in. All right, and then we got Corviknight, who I think is one of the biggest winners of the newer metagame, or like, you know, his usage is probably trended upwards. I feel like on the first weekend of the game, I never saw this guy anywhere, or like only once in a while. Obviously, he's such a good tank overall. Like, he can do special or physical tanking, depending on what you invest in. He's got Roost, Defog, U-Turn, Brave Bird for damage, Body Press for damage. You do all kinds of crazy Power Trip or Body Press Iron Defense sets. But I think people were distracted by some of the newer mons at the beginning. So I'm surprised to see that in the time that he was becoming more popular, it was enough to get him all the way up here to number 6, right? People also were kind of fearing Gholdengo, right? Because it'll block your defog, but if they switch that Gholdengo in, that's a free U-turn for you. So I think people started to realize Corv really does have a huge niche in this meta, and not even a huge niche, just like, because I feel like niche is a loaded term. Like, he is very useful in this meta. He'll live anything, and he can get hazards away. Again, hazards are so important in this meta. I think you need to have a reliable mon to deal with it, and we see Grey Tusk and Corviknight being two of the premier options for that. No mistake that they're very high on these usage lists. But Corv is also decent against Chien-Pao. You know, if you don't let them get set up, and if you have body press, you can really check this mon. He completely walls Glimmora. If Gholdengo doesn't lock into Trick, or, you know, take the gamble on the Trick, he could be really good against him, at least just to get a pivot off. But, you know, he blocks your defog. But yeah, he's really good at switching into, like, almost everything. Let's look at, you know, some of the other biggest winners here, right? Roaring Moon, unless they're, like, set up or Banded Crunch, you know, he can switch into them. Chi-Yu, obviously, you're kind of cooked. Scizor, he's great against. Iron Valiant, if they don't lock into Thunderbolt, he's great against. And even then, you can live one Thunderbolt if they go for that raw call out, and then you can just switch to something that's fine against Thunderbolt. It's probably like one of Iron Valiant's less threatening moves to be clicking. Dragapult, he's great against. Baxcalibur, depends how set up they are, but you can, you know, be pretty solid against them. But yeah, like, Corviknight's just playing the same role that he did in Sword and Shield OU, basically. And he's maybe a little bit more threatened in this meta, but not by much, and he's still on top. And I think, you know, Fluttermane and Iron Bundle particularly being gone is great for him. Palafin actually is great for him to be rising up now. You won't get just taunted and do 6% with Brave Bird or U-turn and just get out of there. Like, Palafin loved setting up on guys like Corviknight, but now he's gone, so you don't have to worry about that. All right, number 7, we got Glimmora, who I think is one of the biggest losers in the current meta. I think this thing, you know, the usage here is 19.75. It was probably 100 on the first weekend of the game. This guy was on every single team. People are like, whoa, wait a minute. You mean I get T-spikes up just for you hitting me? And I learn Stealth Rock, and I learn regular spikes, and I have really high special attack, base 130 with decent speed, and pretty solid coverage options in the move pool. Like, sign me up. I think this guy was on literally every team I ever fought on the first 2 days of the game. But I think he's taking a dive now and will continue to do so. People started figuring out the meta between, like, a Great Tusk lead and a Glimmora lead, or even Glimmora mirror matches, right? You know, you want to swing first with your super effective move and then finish him with a spin? Or do you want to do the opposite? Right? So Great Tusk can do Rapid Spin, chip this thing, get rid of his sash, and then finish him with Headlong Rush, but then there's going to be a layer out. Or do you do the ground move first and then spin, but then risk the switch to Gholdengo with the 1 HP Glimmora out? You know, people are getting better at that meta, right? It's being solved in terms of what to click and when against Glimmora to make sure that it doesn't make the field a complete wreck on your side. So, also, you know, using special mons to hit him and take him out so you get 0 layers of toxic spikes can be very useful as well. So I think Glimmora is kind of like on the opposite of the up and up, the down and down, I guess. Glimmora is probably seeing a bit of a fall from popularity, but I could be wrong. I mean, on super HO teams, when you don't have a lot of turns and you just got to get it done quick and dirty, and you have like a Gholdengo of your own to spin block, or like a different ghost type to spin block that doesn't risk getting killed by knockoff into another knockoff, or just straight up ground move from Great Tusk. Like, I think Glimmora's still got a place, but it's just not like the end-all be-all of hazard setters anymore. Like, we're seeing other guys with rocks and spikes start to be a little bit more popular, and Glimmora a little bit less popular. And obviously with your coverage, you know, you could run like Energy Ball and Earth Power, deals with Great Tusk and Glimmora, you know, other Glimmoras, deals with Gholdengo if they're not Balloon. But then, like, Sludge Bomb was popular at the beginning because it hit all kinds of random guys, but I think that's kind of super tanked in usage. But then, you know, you could like clutch out with a Focus Sash still intact. You could clutch out a game against an Iron Valiant if you had Sludge Bomb. But I don't know. You got to like pick and choose with this guy, right? I think he's kind of pressed for his 4 moves. Like, do you run 1 hazard and Mortal Spin, or do you run just 2 hazards and leave the spinning to somebody else? Or which 2 attacks do you run? Do you even run 2 attacks? Do you go 2 hazards over 2 attacks and risk getting walled? I don't know. But Glimmora can do a lot, and also can do absolutely nothing, depending on the opponent and the team. So, you know, we see it at number 7, I guess technically number 5 right now, but it probably will go down a little bit. Obviously, it's still one of the best hazard setters we've ever seen, though. It's just about how good people are at playing around it and how popular his counter matchups become. All right, then we got Roaring Moon, who I was kind of low on at the beginning of the game, and really even the middle of the game as well. But I think he's also probably going to get a little bit better. So at first everyone was falling into that noob trap of like, holy shit, I'm just going to Dragon Dance up and win the game with this guy, and then like Terra Flying and kill it with acrobatics and all that. But then unaware Pokemon started becoming really popular, like Dondozo, Skeledirge, unaware Clodsire became a little bit more popular than Water Absorb, especially when Palafin and Iron Bundle got banned. So I was kind of low on Roaring Moon because it felt very easy to counterplay him, and it felt very easy to counterplay most setup mons just because of how good the unaware guys are. But of course, Roaring Moon fans, they didn't take that line down, bro. They adapted, they innovated, and they figured out a better way to play this guy. And that was with Choice Band or Choice Scarf or Sun, or both Sun and a choice item, right? This guy as a wall breaker with Choice Band, you get crazy strong U-turns, just pivot in and out, crazy strong crunch, even Dragon Claw is pretty good. It's not the highest base power move, but it is pretty solid, especially in a meta that doesn't have many fairy types. You're just running around swinging pretty hard with that. So U-turn, crunch, Earthquake, Dragon Claw, probably the new way to run this guy with Choice Band or Choice Scarf. I'd say probably Choice Band is better, but depending on the speed control that your team needs, maybe you want to go with Scarf. Then we got Claude in 9. Clodsire, I think, is probably one of the biggest losers of this meta as well. So he is really good against a lot of the Pokemon that are now banned. Fluttermane, you could eat those special hits up, kind of switch into it with impunity. Even if it ran Psyshock, if they were choiced, then they were kind of cooked. If they were Calm Mind and Sub, they definitely weren't running Psyshock. Palafin, you could use Water Absorb or Unaware to really bother this guy. Iron Bundle, if you switch into a Hydro Pump, you're chilling, and you might even be chilling on an Ice move just because your Spidef is so great and your HP is so great. Houndstone, whatever, he doesn't really, get answered by Clodsire at all. But yeah, like 3 of the banned bonds definitely didn't like fighting against Clodsire. And now some of the more popular guys like Great Tusk and Chien-Pao, Gholdengo if you trick, Corviknight, like what is Clodsire doing to any of these guys? This thing is destroying it with a ground move. This is destroying it with an ice move. This is just defogging the rocks away every time you put them up and not caring how much you want to heal or, Earthquake and Toxic don't affect him. Glimmora definitely doesn't appreciate fighting Clodsire, but it can still be like free setup for you, You get a lot of layers up against this thing, and it's not like he has hazard removal. So like if I were Glimmora versus Clodsire, I would just sack, get all my shit up, let him Earthquake me and put the Toxic Spikes out, and then I just finish him off if he's chipped, or like put in something that can one-shot him on the physical side. His physical defense is very bad. I think it's like 60 or less. 60. Yeah, like that ain't great. But with 130 HP, I mean, you generally can survive some stuff. But if he gets chipped down, it can be rough for him. I don't know. I think like this Mon was very good at the beginning and is probably going to tank a little bit, but not by much. It's not like he's awful now or anything. So next we got Chi-Yu, who is easily one of the biggest winners of the current meta. Easily. At the beginning of the game, Fluttermane was faster, but I think Chi-Yu is still really good into it. Palafin would cook you up. Iron Bundle would cook you up. And Houndstone, I guess, could outspeed you and just kill you because you're not very bulky or anything. But Namely, Palafin and Iron Bundle being gone is great for Chi-Yu, and Fluttermane being gone for a different reason, right? So, Palafin and Iron Bundle, both of them mean that you being gone means that you have less threats, right? Less counter picks. But Fluttermane and Iron Bundle being gone means you have less competition for that role of being the premier special attacker. Like, the only other special attacker up here, well, I guess Glimmora technically counts, but not really, is Gholdengo, right? Scarf Gholdengo, very, very good. Extremely high special attack and all that. But he doesn't do a fraction of the damage that Chi-Yu does. Chi-Yu, with choice specs especially, is just destroying everything in its path. Like, there are basically no switch-ins to this guy. And especially if you have like Terra Grass for that added coverage against guys like Ting-Lu, or even Terra Fighting works to kill other Chi-Yus, to kill Ting-Lu, to kill Tyranitar. It's very, very hard to switch into this thing. The specs variant, again, like, you know, you get him in with a pivot, like a U-turn from anybody, especially like a slow U-turn off Corviknight or something, and you just put him in and go to town. You just destroy whatever's in front of you. Dark Pulse, very difficult to switch into overall. Depending on what you see in front of you, you could just click Overheat. Even Overheat does like 60% to Ting-Lu, even more if they're not fully invested in Spadef. Dondozo gets 2-shot by Dark Pulse. Like, oh my god. there's a lot of stuff that Chi-Yu can fry for free, right? But then you could run Scarf if your team needs like that late game closer or that revenge killer or whatever. He's really good at that role as well. I've seen Boots and stuff, but I'm not crazy about that. Like Boots, Nasty Plot, Focus Sash with Will-O-Wisp and Nasty Plot. Like, you know, there's other sets to run, which makes him even scarier, right? I think the spec set is probably still his best. This guy really just reminds me of Tapu Lele, right? You play this with a choice item, punch holes in things, play him smartly, get in, get out, do what you need to do. And then he can just blow such a big hole in their team that they can't come back from it. He's faster and stronger than Tapu Lele, but he has much worse defensive typing, much worse bulk, much worse move pool. Obviously, with the exception of Terra Blast, that Tapu Lele didn't have the luxury of choosing whatever type she wanted to become. Chi-Yu kind of can do that, but it's not like you're going to survive all that much, right? Like, sometimes you just tank that one clutch water move or that one clutch ground move that they're aiming at you. And that's all you need. That said, yeah, I think Chi-Yu is the premier special breaker in this meta. Like, there's really no arguing against it. Well, maybe Iron Valiant can compete with him for that, but yeah, in terms of just smashing holes and things and not being able to switch into it, this guy's a monster. All right, next up we got Kingambit. I think Kingambit is probably one of the bigger winners of this meta, right? Like, did I not put his image over here? Am I just blind? No, I guess I didn't. When I was making this, I didn't put Kingambit over here. But I think at first, Kingambit was highly overrated. People were drawn into the new stuff that he's got. And like, man, I can't wait to sucker punch an entire team and kill them. But now people are realizing, like, taking advantage of this guy's bulk and terrestrializing him to a fairy type is so amazing. It's like almost impossible to kill this guy. You can just live with your crazy natural bulk of 100 to 120, 85. Very hard to hit fairies super effectively, right? Poison and steel, not the most common attacking types, especially poison, because this guy's gonna make it rain. But yeah, I think Kingambit is kind of on the rise. You can endgame super well with this guy if he's like your 5th or 6th Mon. He's so crazy powerful, even without an SD boost. And he can just finish off the team, right? He can get the job done. So I think Kingambit is probably on the climb. And to see him at 11, again, I think that's kind of like the new toy syndrome that really boosted him up at the start. And then he kind of fell off, and then he's back up, right? Very similar to Chien-Pao, where it's like the usage at first is way high, and then it dips way low, and then it goes way back up once people kind of learn how to play with the Mon. Then we got Cyclizar, who I am not sure how to feel about. I would probably put him on the biggest winners end. Like, he's in the conversation to be banned just because Shed Tail is so cheesy. To give up 17% of your HP thanks to Regenerator to get a free switch and or a free switch and a free sub at the same time, like, that's just crazy. You know, you get this guy in on like a choice locked Pokemon into a ghost move like Gholdengo, well, guess what? You're bringing in your setup sweeper behind a sub, guaranteed. They are forced to switch unless they just click Shadow Ball again. Yeah, so actually, forget what I just said. If they read the Shed Tail, they can just click Shadow Ball again, unless you pass it to another normal type. But either way, like, the mind games are very, very serious. This guy, the setup potential is incredible. I have him right next to Grimmsnarl, even though he's number 24. I kind of want to talk about these guys together. These guys on the same team, man, like, getting the screens up to make it that much harder for Cyclizar sub to be broken, and to also give the very squishy Cyclizar a little bit of comfort to switch around. It's really, really good. He's got knockoff, he's got rapid spin. You can run like Draco or Overheat to catch them by surprise and kill the shit out of them. Yeah, man, Cyclizar is cheap, and he's really good. I wouldn't be surprised to see him banned. I kind of think it's less likely than I used to think that he'll get banned, but Shed Tail's a really cheap strat, man. And especially Shed Tail and screen setup. Like, I don't know. It's just a little brain dead, but I think, these guys, now you don't have the luxury of just doing, like, Palafin solo setup. Like, these guys kind of open the door for a whole bunch of other setup sweepers to become way scarier. Like, these two with, like, a Dragon Dance Roaring Moon, or, like, a Dragon Dance Dragonite, Quiver Dance Volcarona. Like, man, they are really, really disgustingly good. And it can be kind of hard to play around. But it can also be kind of easy to play around, depending on how your team is built. So, Iron Bundle, Lol banned. This thing was just too strong, too fast, too good of coverage with Hydro Pump and a Freeze Dry. So we'll skip past him. Then we got Scizor. And, I'm kind of surprised to see him this high on the list. Not because he's not that good, but because he's, an old Pokemon just doing the same things he always was doing, with the exception of the new Close Combat, and also Terraslizing at this guy to, like, an Electric or Fire type to hit Corviknight can be really nice. But I don't know if, like, you're going to want to spend your Terra on him. Like, going with Electric particularly, so you still only have one weakness, is really nice. I could see also Terra Steel and just Swords Dance bullet punching through an entire team. He was really good against Fluttermane. If they didn't go for Mystical Fire on the Switch, you could just bring him in and then bullet punch. But Chien-Pao folds to bullet punch. Glimmora doesn't appreciate fighting this guy. U-turn is so good against a lot of the tier. Even guys like Ting-Lu can't really switch into Scizor. You got U-turn and CC to hit him super effectively. They're typically invested in SpDef instead of defense. But yeah, just like a really nice, bulky, strong pivot with priority in Scizor. I like him a lot. He lost Roost, so you don't really ever see him used defensively anymore. But you can, just like invest in HP and SpDef and rely on his natural power to kill things. Like, all these frail guys, they really just need a little bit of damage or even no damage to die to bullet punch. Like, I wonder if Chien-Pao dies from full to an uninvested bullet punch. But yeah, just he's so good at his role, and U-turn is a little bit of a hot commodity right now. Like Corviknight, Roaring Moon, Cyclizar, Scizor, Dragapult, Lokix, Meowscarada, Mousehold can use it, Quackquavel can use it, and I guess you can use Volt Switch. But yeah, there's not that many pivots in the tier right now, which makes Scizor stand out, and he's also very, very strong with it. So I like this Mon. I'm glad to see that other people are privy to him being very good. Okay, so then we got Iron Treads, who I think is kind of just unaffected by the developments of the meta. Like, this Mon, I don't know, he feels like, like Great Tusk is classic Coke, and Iron Treads is modern Coke. This guy's just the guy, He's not as fast as Iron Treads, but I think everything else he's kind of just better at. But Iron Treads is still really good. Like, that extra speed can be a huge difference maker. You still have a great ground stab. I don't believe he learns Headlong Rush, only Earthquake. Yeah, he only gets Earthquake. So he's weaker, but he's faster and bulkier. So, is he actually even bulkier? Well, he's definitely bulkier specially, but no. Great Tusk is even straight up just bulkier than him. So, I don't know. I personally always go Great Tusk, but this thing is still good. Again, that extra speed can really come into play. But Knockoff, Stealth Rock, all that kind of stuff. Rapid Spin, great utility Mon. And I don't think his position in the meta is going to change all that much. Like, I still see him as near the top, but yeah, he'll probably go down over time, not because of any like shifts in the meta, but just because people are like, you know, he's good, but I'd probably rather play Great Tusk. But I don't know, you know, there's not all that many spinners out there, and he could be really good. Okay, next is Iron Valiant, who I think is definitely on the come up. Since the last time I made one of these videos talking about everybody's place in the metagame, all the top tier Pokemon, whatever, I definitely had Iron Valiant near the top, but I was sleeping a little bit. This thing is so scary with a Choice Scarf. Particularly with Choice Scarf, I think over Booster Energy, because it allows you the freedom of switching it back out and then bringing it in and still having a speed boost. Like, I feel like this guy's a little bit underwhelming without +1 speed, but also when you do have Booster Energy, if you bring it in at the right time where you don't really get forced out by anything and you can kill the rest of the team just with your natural coverage, obviously that's better too. So there's ups and downs to both. I think, you know, personally, I just prefer Choice Scarf, but Booster Energy still very viable, a very valid choice. You run like Moonblast, Close Combat, or Focus Blast. I personally prefer Close Combat. Thunderbolt and Shadow Ball, so you can hit Gholdengo. Gholdengo is really like his #1 enemy. Clodsire also gives him a hard time. But yeah, just being faster than everybody is so useful when you have still very solid offense like this guy. You can just like revenge kill anything. You can stop setup sweepers. Like a Dragonite that is not terastallized, you can just be faster than him at +1. You'll live in extreme speed, but if they have multi-scale intact, they still kind of cook you. And if they do Terra to normal, you can Close Combat and kill them instead. He's faster than Pult. Like, he's faster than pretty much everybody if he has Scarf, right? Almost everybody. There's definitely some other guys who still creep on him, like Meowscarada with Scarf, or like other Scarfers, and some Mons after they boost. Like Roaring Moon is faster than him, right? I think Roaring Moon reaches 370 speed. So if you get +1 with Roaring Moon, it could be a problem. Yeah, it's 370. So, yeah, either way, Iron Valiant is still amazing. And, like, I've seen setup variants toward the beginning of the game, but I think once people moved away from that, moved away from the physical variants too, because he does have higher attack and special attack, so it seems tempting to run him as a physical attacker at first, but his special move pool is just way better. Like, Moonblast versus Spirit Break, I mean, that makes up for the difference in attack and special attack for him. And also gives him options like Thunderbolt, options like Shadow Ball to deal with Gholdengo. And then you keep CC for that sneaky Blissey counter, or like whatever physically weak guy they bring in is. Like even like T-Tar, you know, you can kind of eat up some Moonblast. Not really, but if you want to catch him super off guard on the switch, you could do that. But yeah, still amazing Pokemon. Breloom, I think Breloom is probably on the downturn. He was cool against Palafin because you could put him to sleep if you outsped. Like a lot of the later game Palafins were running no speed, so you could live a Jet Punch or Sash, whatever move, and then put him to sleep and maybe kill him with Bullet Seed or something, or I don't know. But Iron Bundle he was also pretty good against. I think people are just getting better at playing around this guy. Like if hazards are up, he loses Focus Sash, which is huge. Yeah, I don't know. I was very high on Breloom toward kind of like the midpoint of the meta, but now I'm starting to see people deal with him better. Like Corviknight being around is not great for him. Even if you put him to sleep, like you can't really kill him either. Chien-Pao though, he's still great against Chien-Pao. Gholdengo is very hard for him to deal with because he is immune to Spore. But if you read the switch of the Bullet Seed and you get, I think, 3 hits twice in a row, you know, like 3+ hits 2 times in a row, you can kill Gholdengo from full and like live his focus or his Choice Scarf hit with your Focus Sash. But I don't know, it's very dependent on how long you're able to keep the Sash in play for Breloom, how good he can be. Yeah, I think he's kind of just on the downturn, but he does what he's always done, right? I think he's still one of the best Mons in the tier, but it's just a little bit easy to counterplay him. Okay, Houndstone, Law Band. We'll skip that. Dragapult. I think Dragapult is definitely on the come up. I ran a set that was Choice Band with Terra Dragon, and I would lead with it a lot and either U-turn out or just Terra Dragon turn 1 and kill the shit out of whatever's in front of me with Dragon Darts. Like, dude, that just does so much damage. By losing your Ghost type, you also don't die to Sucker Punches from other guys, which is really nice. So, something to keep in mind for sure. But then you do lose your Ghost type for, like, being immune to extreme speed. So there's ups and downs to it. But this thing can just start the game by smashing a huge hole in their team with Dragon Darts. And you just destroy everything in front of you and then bring them out smartly for the rest of the game. But yeah, I think Dragapult's really good. Choice Specs is still good. Annoyer sets are still pretty good. But I think that Banded Dragon Darts is going to be the future of this Pokemon's usage in the tier. Just my hunch. And then you can finish off late game if you need to, like, get that extra power with the Terra and just break through. But yeah, really good Mon. Next is Lokix. I'm kind of surprised to see this guy at 20th. Not that he's not good, because he is really good. But, yeah, like, the number of people using him must be a lot higher than what I've been running into on ladder. I definitely fight a good amount of Lokixes every now and then. But, was it that Pokéaim video, bro? Like, did Pokéaim just get a huge Lokix hype wave started at the beginning and people, like, just spammed him to get him to 20th most used Pokemon? I don't know. But yeah, this Mon is very good, and I think he's probably, like, one of the big winners of the meta. Just people figuring out how to play this guy better is yielding some good results for him. You can use Band, Scarf, Life Orb, Boots, whatever you want. They're all pretty good for different reasons, but this guy just comes in, hits the huge unresisted first impression because of Tinted Lens, and then he gets out of there. He could also come in and just smack you with an unresisted U-turn and get out of there, or stay in and Sucker Punch, or like Swords Dance and then Sucker Punch. Like, I don't know, Lokix is kind of a menace. His stats aren't the best, but they're far from the worst. Like, he's just strong enough and just fast enough to be a huge threat. And I definitely was sleeping on him at the beginning, but when you see how hard this thing hits off the Tinted Lens, man, you're definitely not trying to fight this guy. But yeah, I'm very surprised to see him at 20th. I do think that he's, like, his future looks good. Also, you know, if you just want to look at the other Pokemon out here, Chien-Pao does not appreciate taking a nasty first impression. Gholdengo will get obliterated by his dark moves. Corviknight, you 4x resist bug, so, you know, sorry, go next. And he kills you back with Brave Bird, so not much Lokix can do to this guy, but you still hit him harder than you would expect. Glimmora, I feel like these two don't even interact all that much, but probably randomly not the best for Lokix, especially if they have Power Gem. But again, not a Pokemon that you're really, like, playing around after the first couple turns most of the time. Roaring Moon gets shattered by first impression. Clodsire gets probably hit pretty hard because your Fizdef is just so weak. Obviously, your typing is great against him, though. Chi-Yu folds in one, I think. Like, one U-turn or first impression, I think, will kill him. Or at least the U-turn will do a lot. First impression might do it. Yeah, I don't know. Like, Lokix is just randomly so strong, and you can never count him out. Like, being able to go first and pivot, it's just like, shit, do I switch or not? You know? The combination of a strong U-turn and a strong first impression is really, really deadly. Then we got Baxcalibur, who I also have going up in recent times. Like, I think people are just figuring out, like, you don't even need all this elaborate shit. You don't need hail or snow. You don't need screens. Like, this guy is just naturally bulky enough to get a DD off, potentially even 2, and then he can sweep your team. Just like, I've even seen loaded dice with Icicle Spear, but you could run Crash, you could run Glaive Rush, which is one of the craziest stabs. As long as you're faster than them and they don't have priority out there, like, the drawback to Glaive Rush is minimal. You got Earthquake for coverage. You could Terra Fire to just change your typing and make it hard to hit you super effectively, make it easier to get that one Dragon Dance off or that second Dragon Dance off. Yeah, Baxcalibur's really good, man. I think he's certainly going to be more and more popular as the days go by. Same goes for Garchomp, who I think, like, his climb to becoming more popular has probably already started and finished. Like, I don't think he's going to fall off or anything, but people started to realize, like, this guy is almost, like, better than Glimmora for the hazards. Like, you can't spin, but you learn Stealth Rock and Spikes, which also Glimmora does, but You also get Dragon Tail. So you're like the setter and the phaser all in one. Garchomp, not really ever run as an offensive mon, because I feel like he struggles to either outspeed or break through a lot of these guys. But, yeah, like settling into that new role as a dedicated hazard setter with either pure bulk or bulk and speed, like, and a Rocky Helmet anyway, just to punish them for trying to spin on you. Really, really good. Like, one time they switched in their Garchomp when I went for spin with Great Tusk, and like the combination of Rocky Helmet and Rough Skin was enough to just straight up kill me, and it didn't make the hazards go away because I died to it, right? Like, you have to survive doing your rapid spin to take the hazards off. You could even Terra Ghost on him if you want to just like make a really early Gambit to guarantee their hazards stay up for the rest of the game. It could be so worth it. But yeah, this mon's dirty. Garchomp, you know, he's good at anything he ever does. He has such good stats that it's hard to see this mon not being great. So I have him on the biggest winners section. But, you know, I think he's already done the work of trending upward and probably is not going to go too far up from here. Like, he's, you know, 22nd might be a little low, but it's not like he's currently rising. It's like he already has risen. So if you've been playing in the last couple days, you've probably seen a lot of this guy. All right, next up, Meowscarada, my favorite starter. Such a cool-ass Pokemon. I think Meow's place in the meta has not really changed, and that's due to a lot of things. At the beginning, like, I've talked about this before in a video, everyone thought this mon was going to be cracked. It's like, oh my god, fast grass starter with Protean, good move pool, knockoff, U-turn, etc. Flower Trek's a crazy move. But then, like, we saw the rest of the meta, and we were like, I don't know if this thing is that good. But then, I think there have been a couple good reasons to play Meowscarada popping up. One of them is Dondozo, who, with Unaware and Curse, can be impossible to break on the physical side. But you have a grass move that always crits with Meow. So, you can use it to break Dondozo. With a Scarf, you're faster than a lot of these guys, even at +1. You just barely outspeed +1 Roaring Moon. You can kill him with U-turn. Or you could just, like, hit him super hard with Knockoff if he's Terra'd to another type. Well, maybe not Knockoff, because if he Terra's flying, then yeah. But you could like Sucker Punch. You could use one of your coverage moves, like Play Rough or Thunder Punch or some shit like that. You're faster than Gholdengo, and you kill him with Knockoff, I believe, or come close to it. But yeah, like Great Tusk also, Meowscarada is pretty good into. If you know, because you're going to be Protean, you'll lose your weakness to fighting. So you go first, hit with a Flower Trick, and then you don't die to close combat. That's pretty cool too. But, yeah, I don't know. Meowscarada, I think, like, has kind of settled into being one of these, like, middle-of-the-pack OU mons, right? Where it's definitely very good, and, like, maybe even toward the top half. But it was overrated at first, and then I think it became underrated, and now it's kind of just stabilized. And, you know, we see the utility that this mon has. And you don't even have to run Scarf. Scarf is just because there's so many fucking fast guys out there, like Chien-Pao, who naturally outspeed you, that, like, the temptation of the banded set for damage is kind of lower. But you also get Spikes. You also get Trick. I don't know. This mon has a really good move pool. I do think there's still more optimization to be done with it, but yeah, it's a pretty damn good mon. It's just not like game breaking, and I don't think the secret untapped potential is like so high that we're going to see this skyrocket, and I don't think it can ever really fall off super hard and be bad. All right, after that, Grimmsnarl, we already talked about him, but even without Cyclizar, just setting up screens is so valuable right now. This is hands down the best screen setter. You can Parting Shot out, you could Raw Switch out, you can Taunt them, you can Spirit Break them for honestly pretty respectable damage, and you lower their special attack, which can be really nice, depending on who they're trying to finish off your Grimmsnarl with. But yeah, this mon's really good, and, you know, depending on what you got on your team, like a Roaring Moon or a Dragonite or a Volcarona or something, or all three of them, fuck it, you know? You could just, like, end the game after getting screens up in a meta like this. It's very, very hard to stop some of these guys if you don't have an Unaware mon, especially. Next up is Toxapex, who, since the beginning of Scarlet and Violet, I don't think has really changed all that much. I still think this mon's really good, but I'm kind of, like, low on it. I don't know. I'm tempted to move this down to the biggest losers. Like, you were good against Palafin until they started running Taunt. Iron Bundle with Freeze Dry kind of destroyed this thing, but if you switch into anything else, you're good. It was pretty good against Fluttermane, honestly. The only thing it could really hit you with is like Psyshock or just a neutral Shadow Ball, and neither of those are doing all that much. But I don't know. I think Pex's story is not over yet. This is maybe a hot take that this isn't one of the biggest losers of the new meta, but I have a feeling Toxapex is still here to do its annoying ass bullshit. Like, Toxic is still really good. Just having access to that move when a lot of people don't. Yeah, that's solid. You can also T-Spike. You can also just survive forever and be an annoying pivot. Deal damage back to things because of Rocky Helmet. I don't know. I think Pex is still alright. Then we got Amoonguss. I have him in the biggest losers because I think really one of his main claims to fame, bars, was countering Palafin super hard. You could just Spore him, right? And clear Smog and like live his hits and shit. Like when you see this thing start going crazy, like, oh, maybe they want to taunt your Spore? Nah, clear Smog. Just never set up, and then Giga Drain to get health back off of him. Still a good Mon. I think he's still going to be like OU territory for sure. But like the main thing he was there as an answer to is no longer here. And Breloom also, he completely shuts down. But I think Breloom is losing stock as well. So I don't know. A little cold on Amoonguss right now, especially with Chi-Yu becoming extremely popular. Especially with Corviknight making a resurgence. Chien-Pao being so popular is also awful for him. Gholdengo. Oh my god. You literally can't touch Gholdengo, but I've started to see people running Stomping Tantrum on Amoonguss just to at least be able to do something to Gholdengo. But then, you know what, man? What are you doing to the balloon set? You gotta waste a turn to pop that balloon and then deal, what, like 40% with your weak-ass Stomping Tantrum? I don't know. Not a bad Mon by any means, just, I think, on the downturn slightly. We have Dragonite at 27th, which I'm kind of surprised by. I had him near the top of my, meta analysis video. And I still would say he's probably near the top. I mean, this thing is just so tough to get, to stop once he's gotten going, right? If you get especially +2 Dragon Dances, I mean, Extreme Speed has priority over every other move, right? It's +2. I guess First Impression ties with it. And like, I don't know, Feint or some shit, Fake Out. Moves like that, but you don't really see any of that. And there's only like 2 guys using First Impression out here, which are Lokix and Slitherwing, who we haven't seen anywhere near the top 40, or maybe he's like 45th, but he's definitely not one of these guys. He's not one of these common threats. But yeah, +2 Dragonite can sweep a whole team. You tire the normal, you just get crazy strong. You have good coverage with Earthquake, Ice Spinner, Fire Punch, you name it. You got a lot of options. And especially if you use Shed Tail and or Screens, like Dragonite is getting those boosts. You keep your multi-scale intact for the whole game. You don't switch this thing in irresponsibly. Yeah, this is a fucking disgustingly good Mon. So I'm very surprised to only see him at 27th, but maybe it's new toy syndrome because there's so many Gen 9 Mons out there that I feel like he's just as good as them, but he isn't being used as much. So I don't know. Maybe Dragonite's easier to stop than I think. Obviously, again, all setup Pokemon kind of suffer while the unaware Pokemon are popular. I think we saw like a little era of the meta just like last week, about like exactly a week ago, where unaware Mons were super popular. Dondozo, Skeledirge, Clodsire, Quagsire. Like, people saw how powerful setup Mons were and then started playing those guys a lot. But I don't know, maybe like those guys are kind of phasing out. Like, I have Dondozo in the biggest loser section. We'll talk about that why in a bit. But yeah, I feel like I'm not seeing as much of these Mons anymore in the past 3-4 days especially. So, again, this is such a new meta. It's so volatile. It's changing every single hour. Literally, people are still discovering new sets and new tactics and shit. So, maybe Dragonite doesn't change at all. Maybe he goes up. Maybe he goes down. But I still think he's one of the best Mons in the whole tier. It's just like, you gotta set the win conditions up, and then it can be very hard to stop him. 28th is Ditto. I mean, Ditto is literally a copy of whatever you put him in on. So I think this is always going to be just exactly what he is. He's as good as your opponent's guys are. He can stop a setup sweeper, or like, take a setup sweeper from your opponent, clear the field and win. Or he might not even be that good in certain matchups, but I don't think anything has really changed for Ditto. Next is Garganacl, who I think is definitely loving the changes to the meta, particularly because of the bans. Fluttermane, he didn't actually mind all that much, but Palafin being gone and Iron Bundle being gone are great news for him, right? Just because before you Terrasilize, you are weak to their water stabs. You typically are investing in special defense, and if you can't get like set up with Iron Defense, Palafin could still smash a hole in you, and even with Iron Defense, Iron Bundle could do so much damage to you. But I think Garganacl is one of those mons that is just like really, really damn hard to kill. You Terra Fairy or Flying or Water or like some really good defensive type with this guy, Iron Defense up, and then just watch your opponent struggle to break you. You might even take down like 2 mons while they're floundering around and like trying to waste out your recover PP. You could stay in for a long time. So if you get rid of like whatever counters him, Terrasilized or unterrasilized, he can just like be too hard to break for a long time. But yeah, I think the spawn's really good. I've also seen like, I don't know, more lead oriented sets where they got like a Stealth Rock or whatever, or, you know, maybe not lead oriented, but just like not a defensive closer. So yeah, I think Garganacl is probably appreciated in value recently, but maybe not. He's somewhere between here and neutral. All right, then we got Torkoal. I have Torkoal stonks going way up because people are getting way better at running the Sun. Now, at first, I kind of thought Sun was a little bit of a trap, where it's like, am I setting up my guys or their guys? Because Great Tusk is on every team. Roaring Moon is on a shitload of teams. And, you know, they don't even have to use a mediocre Torkoal to get this all going, and I'm just powering them up. But yeah, this is not a bad mon at all either. Honestly, like I was kind of shitting on him just there, but he could set up rocks. He can spin rocks away. He could burn you with Lava Plume, which is pretty nice, or just, you know, do a solid hit in the Sun. And his teammates are cracked. Roaring Moon, boost that attack or speed, but probably attack up. Great Tusk, imagine a stronger Great Tusk for free, basically. You can run like any item you want and get Photosynthesis activated. Chi-Yu? Oh my god, I think the rise of Chi-Yu has helped Torkoal a ton too, right? Dragonite with Terra Fire and Fire Punch is crazy good with him. What else you got? Volcarona? Iron Moth even? Skeledirge? So many good mons to abuse this shit with. Even not including Paradox Pokemon, right? You got a lot of ways to make a Sun team of Torkoal work. Oh, Cerule Edge, even Arboliva is crazy good with the Sun. So yeah, there's a lot going on. I mean, Arboliva is setting up the terrain to protect you from earthquakes. Can be really nice. But again, like Headlong Rush being popular now, or existing now, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to get any value with the grassy terrain. But still, yeah, Torkoal definitely has improved in my eyes, and so has Sun as an overall strategy. Mostly Sun as an overall strategy, but Torkoal too. 31, Ting-Lu. So, you know, we were talking about how this usage stats for November means from day 1 of the game, like November 18th or whatever, up until today, right? Ting-Lu, I don't think started catching on until the past week. And maybe even a little bit less than that. But this thing just lives everything, bro. And he is over the moon to see Fluttermane, Palafin, and Iron Bundle all banned. He was an amazing answer to Houndstone. But this, like the Moonblast, that definitely hurt. The Jet Punches, the Drain Punches, it all hurt him. And then, you know, you're weak to both of Iron Bundle stabs as well. The only thing that he didn't mind was like, oh, I can switch in on Fluttermane's Shadow Ball, haha. But and they have the fairy coverage. But yeah, Ting-Lu, man, this guy is absolutely amazing. He's very similar to Garchomp in that he is just so good at getting the hazards up, and he can phase you out. He's got Whirlwind instead of Dragon Tail. I think Dragon Tail is maybe slightly better. It's basically like you don't affect fairies versus you don't affect Gholdengo with your phasing move. And they both get Earthquake, of course. So, Ting-Lu, man, just such a solid hazard setter, man. He can do whatever he wants. Most of the time, you know, and I like terraing him to Steel or Poison or Ghost, depending on the team. Like Ghost to make him a spin blocker, Poison and Steel to make him just impossible to Toxic. But I don't think he gets Toxic all that much. And honestly, you don't even mind having him like absorb a status and like switch him out before the toxic damage starts building up crazy high or whatever. But he can just take so many hits. He's also one of the only switch-ins to guys like Chi-Yu's Dark Pulse. But you can't really switch into Chi-Yu's Overheat. At least, not twice. And he lacks recovery. Same problem as Garchomp. But at least on this guy, you run Leftovers. Garchomp, you probably run Rocky Helmet, so he has something to heal back. I could see Ting-Lu on a team with Screamtail passing him Wishes, or Umbreon passing him Wishes being really dangerous. But probably Screamtail, because Umbreon's also a Dark type. And you don't want to be like too redundant with your defensive walls and what they're able to resist. But yeah, Ting-Lu and Screamtail, look out for that. I'm calling that right now. That's going to be extremely hard to take down. All right, next we have Dondozo, who I think he was very low at the beginning, super spiked up in terms of how good he was in the middle, and has since gone down. So he started rising as a response to all these setup sweepers once people realized just how they could play with Grimmsnarl or Cyclizar and get your free setup. But you could also just kill Dondozo without setting up. And particularly with a mon like Chi-Yu, where you just Dark Pulse this guy twice and it's over for him. Like, he can't switch into Chi-Yu. Absolutely no shot. He can't switch into like a banded Roaring Moon. So if you have a powerful enough breaker, Dondozo's defensive utility goes way down. Like, the only way he can heal is rest, so he needs a lot of turns to be able to get going. And you know, he can boost with Curse, but that's why like a special guy like Chi-Yu or Iron Valiant can be really rough for him to take on. Thunderbolt from this thing hits him pretty hard. Again, Dark Pulse from Chi-Yu breaks every single thing in the tier. Dondozo is no exception. I guess Ting-Lu is really... Ting-Lu and Tyranitar are the only exceptions. And we're going to talk about Tyranitar very shortly. But yeah, I think Dondozo kind of lost a little bit of value when people began shifting toward like strong breakers. And I think Choice Specs, Chi-Yu, and Choice Band Roaring Moon are really like the key key Pokemon to point out for that. But he's still obviously really good. Like, he is just completely unstoppable against setup sweepers. You know, like, they can't break him. So having this on your team, I still think is a really good decision, just because you can fucking you know, just completely deny them the opportunity to get anything going, as long as you keep him healthy. If you let them get chipped down and they can hit you with an unboosted attack and kill you, then it's rough. But obviously, you know, the biggest losers tier, how to start with the biggest loser. That said, I still like playing this Pokemon. I haven't been playing him in the last couple days, but he is on one of the teams that I have spent a lot of time climbing with. All right. Then we got Ceruledge in 33rd, which, I mean, the only reason this guy is even that high is because he's so fucking cool, right? Like, he's not that good, but he is really fucking cool. And I think a lot of people want to make him work. But I think they also started to figure out how to make him work. And particularly, I think that's on Sun. This thing's Bitter Blade hits so goddamn hard in the Sun. So goddamn hard. And then you got Weak Armor. You could even run Weakness Policy or Focus Sash or Endure. Like a whole bunch of different ways to like help him get fast. He has Shadow Sneak if you don't want to even wait for him to get fast. But basically, Swords Dance, Bitter Blade, I don't know, Shadow Sneak and CC probably would be the best set on this guy. And I think he's definitely hitting the come up a little bit. I don't think he's crazy good, but I think, you know, I don't think he's like necessarily better than 33rd best Pokemon in OU. But I think compared to what I thought of him and like how good he probably was in reality at the beginning, he is way better now. So yeah, people have kind of figured out Ceruledge a little bit, and he could work. My boy Jason Ceruledge. Then we got Tyranitar. All right, this Pokemon is just always going to be good, right? And I think he's on the up and up because of the popularity of Chi-Yu. And this is truly the only Pokemon that can switch into Chi-Yu. Even if they Terrasilize to Grass, but not if they Terrasilize into Fighting. You have your Crazy Ice Spadef boosted by the Sand. You resist both Dark and Fire. Ting-Lu only resists Dark, right? So having T-Tar to just completely shut down Chi-Yu's offensive potential, very important. He's also like a lot better than Hippowdon, I think now. Hippowdon losing Toxic and Slack Off getting nerfed both really hurt him, whereas Tyranitar's tools didn't get nerfed necessarily. I think Tyranitar is definitely going to see a little bit of a bump in usage. And let me see, what else is he good against? Like, he's maybe good against Gholdengo. Like, if they're Shadow Ball spamming, he's great at that. Switching into that. Make It Rain and Focus Blast will hurt him pretty bad, though. It's looking kind of rough for him after that. He's good against Pult. At least the special variants. Choice Band Dragon Darts probably rips a hole in him, though. Shit. I mean, maybe I'm just tripping and Tyranitar is actually not on the up and up at all. I think, like, really my sole thought, the only thought in my brain when I put him up here was that he answers to you better than any other Pokemon. Unless they're Terra Fighting. But even then, I think you probably do live one. I don't know. You know what? Let's calc it. Let's calc it. So we're going to make them both extremely specialized, right? So this max speed F, this max special attack, and specs. Okay, cool. It does have it. Oh, that's my custom set. Lol. Okay, so Terra Blast normal does like 8%. But yeah, I don't think there's any shot that you're killing with this. And I believe Beads of Ruin is not calculated for, right? Yeah, it is not. So, trying to think what the best way to make this work is. Oh yeah, also we have to give him Stab. Yeah, never mind. This thing clears. And then Beads of Ruin makes up for the difference. Yeah, so rough. Tyranitar gets fucking cooked by fighting Terra Blast. And I think that's something we're going to see more of in the coming days too, right? Is Terra fighting Chi-Yu. I've been very keen on the grass one. Again, you can just resist and live a grass or a ground or water attack in a pinch. But fighting helps you in the mirror match, and it helps you against Tyranitar. So it really depends on what your team is weak against. Either way, yeah, I don't know. Again, my sole reason for putting him up here was that Chi-Yu is so damn good. Tyranitar doesn't get many good partners. The only thing with Sandrush right now is Lycanroc, who's just not good enough. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe Tyranitar is in the mostly neutral category because he wasn't that great to start with, and the only edge he's getting is being able to answer one of the more popular Pokemon now. But we will see. Again, this is all conjecture. This is all just me, who is not the best player in the world, not even one of the best players in the world. Just someone who's trying to keep up as much as possible and you know, stay in tune with the shit and give some information to you guys. So, you know, let me know your thoughts in the comments, of course, if you got some input on that. Iron Moth. I don't think he's really changed that much. I don't think he's that good or that bad. I think he's definitely very strong. Booster Energy can be nuts on him. Boots with Agility can be really good on him. I like Terra Ice on him. Just because you can smash the dragons that people want to switch in on you. But overall, I don't know. I'm kind of unimpressed by Iron Moth. I think him being so high is probably just a product of him being a new Mon. So I have him at mostly neutral because, like, I don't think he'll be this high next time. But I don't think that the changes in the meta have really been all that good or bad for him. I mean, he definitely appreciates a lot of these guys being banned, though. That said, you know, Fluttermane is less competition for the role. Palafin and Iron Bundle fucking destroy you. Houndstone, whatever. So, I don't know. Like, maybe he is one of the bigger winners, but I don't think he's that great either. Just overall. He dies to any ground move, too, which is kind of rough. But he is much faster than Great Tusk. So, you don't have to worry about that so much. If you have Terra Ice, you probably kill this thing in one shot, so... I don't know. We'll see with Iron Moth. This is a Mon that I think needs a little bit more time. I'm not too high or low on him, but I'm more low on him than anything. Skeledirge. I think mostly... I don't know, man. Actually, Skeledirge belongs in the biggest winners category. Let's be real. I think he does a lot more than Dondozo does. He has better recovery. He has an attack that also boosts him. He can burn you. He can Terra to Fairy, which is fucking annoying. So, yeah, you know what, man? I'm ready to say it. I think Skeledirge and Tyranitar should probably be swapped. Like, this Pokemon has definitely gotten considerably better. No Palafin to just like hit you really hard, even with Unaware. It's pretty nice. Fluttermane could hit you really hard with Ghost moves. Even if you Terrasilize the Fairy. Iron Bundle, you're never switching into that. Houndstone, you're never switching into that, right? So like a lot of his ops got banned. And this thing is just scary. Like he's just really good. You get rid of a lot of your weaknesses by Terrasilizing. You're very hard to break through. You heal, you boost, you burn. Like, yeah, man, Skeletor is just fucking raw. Never thought we'd see a defensive fire starter, but here we are. Yeah, he's a really good mon, and I think he's gotten a lot better. So pretend he is here, and Tyranitar's here or here. Orthworm. Orthworm is, I think, probably unaffected by anything that's really happened in the past couple days or weeks. He's still just like the slow shed tail guy. He's a gimmick, but he's a pretty good gimmick. And also just having an immunity to ground as well as to poison. It's pretty dirty. I mean, you heal off Earthquake, and like, this is a very popular mon. Ting-Lu, even though he's 31st on this list, very popular now. Baxcalibur and Garchomp are both packing Quake, right? Iron Treads. Like, you got a lot of opportunities to make your opponent second guess putting him in. And you know what's kind of cool? I just realized that there's some good synergy between Orthworm and Gholdengo, right? Because say you're fighting a Great Tusk. This guy, CC, Rapid Spin, I'll eat that up. This guy, Earthquake, Headlong Rush, even Knockoff to some extent. He'll eat that up. So you cover a lot of the moves that Great Tusk wants to click with those two, and obviously they have a great purpose beyond that. This guy blocking the hazards, being fast, being strong, and this guy setting up Shed Tails. So, yeah, I mean, not the most reliable thing. It's not like a guaranteed win or whatever, but it can just make it hard for your opponent to choose what to click with a mon that's very popular. But yeah, Orthworm is good. He could set up rocks, he could body press and iron defense and all that shit. And Shed Tail is really the main draw to this guy. Then we got Mousehold. I think Mousehold has probably had it some of the roughest of any of these guys because now Rocky Helmet Garchomp is so damn popular. And Rocky Helmet Corv is pretty popular too. So, 2 Pokemon with Rocky Helmets going up in stocks, that's bad for Mousehold. Even if you just U-turn out, you don't want to take that shit, you know? And then, I don't know, you probably don't kill Great Tusk with +0. Chien-Pao outspeeds you. Gholdengo just completely memes on you. Corviknight completely memes on you. Glimmora, I mean, I guess you kill the shit out of it, but they get 2 layers of Toxic Spikes up for the trouble. Roaring Moon outspeeds you. Like, Mousehold is very cool, don't get me wrong. Guys like Clodsire, guys like Chi-Yu do not appreciate seeing a Mousehold, unless this thing is Scarf. But, like, Specs is probably the best set. Mousehold outspeeds. Mousehold absolutely kills the shit out of Clodsire. You know, there are a couple mons that he fares well against, and if you get a tidy up going, like, you're in a really good spot. But it's a lot easier said than done. He's frail, he's weak to start, he dies to Rocky Helmet, so you can certainly destroy an entire team with Mousehold, but the amount of legwork you need to do to get there, it's just not easy, and there are other mons that do it better, like Dragonite, for example. If you only have 1 turn to set up, I'm setting up my Terra Normal Extreme Speed Dragonite, not my +1 Mousehold, you know? And he just doesn't have the coverage to back it up. You got Bite, you got U-turn, but like, I don't know. I'll take my Earthquake and Ice or Fire move, please. Thank you. Then we got Volcarona, who I think is one of the biggest winners because of Shed Tail and Light Screen Reflect becoming so much better, or like being kind of more optimized and figured out, and also the decline of mons like Dondozo. So you can Terra this thing into grass. It makes it very hard to kill. But I was really digging Poison Terra Dondozo to shut down the Giga Drain, right? And then Volcarona really struggles to break through you. But again, I think Dondozo is kind of declining. You have Chi-Yu and other breakers to chew him up and just like put him in no position to stop your sweep. So if you have like a partner like that for Volcarona, and really any of these setup guys like Dragonite and stuff, if you have a nice like Specs Chi-Yu or something to that effect on your team, another very strong choice to breaker, I think those mons get to really shine a lot more because you now have counterplay to the unaware guys. Then we have Quackwavel, who I think is also on the rise. Again, I would put Skeledirge up here. Like, we thought Meowscarada was just going to by far be the best, and you can kind of see that from the usage, right? Like, he's at 23rd. These guys are at 36th and 40th. But I think they're all just about as good as each other. And I even remarked on that in my video that went over, like, the tier that I would put these guys in. Yeah, I think, you know, the tankiness of Skeledirge and also the setup threat of Quackwavel is pretty good. I mean, niche use for this guy is that he is great against Chien-Pao, who's very popular. You come in on this, you resist both of his stabs, you get +1 with Aqua Step, and then you're definitely killing him the next turn. You're probably killing something the next turn, and then you get attack boost off of that, etc. Right? So Chien-Pao definitely fears the sight of this guy. He's just overall very, very strong. If he gets rolling, he can close out the end of a game, but kind of like Mousehold, but less extreme of an example. Like, there are other guys who do it better and require less complicated setup, but yeah, this monster, or this thing is still a monster. So, yeah, I think Quackwavel and Skeledirge are definitely on the up and up. Meowscarada probably not change all that much. They probably settle around all about the same. I'd put them all around that, like, 30th mark, probably, if this was, like, tiered by how good I think the mons actually are. Maybe slightly higher for them, but probably, you know, low end of this OU grouping. Then, second to last Pokemon, we have Annihilape, who I think, honestly, has probably dipped in stock since we talked about him last. I had him as one of the top threats, but then I think people just kind of figure out how to play around him. If you don't touch this guy, and if you have a phaser, like if you have a fucking Whirlwind Ting-Lu, I'm not that scared of Annihilape. And now, you know, we see them have to make the hard choice of, do they run Chesto Rest or do they run Leftovers Taunt? And they're not able to run both, obviously, right? And if you go with the Taunt set, you got to run Speed to make him be able to taunt faster guys that are trying to status him. And if you have the Leftover or the Chesto set, if you get knocked off, you'll never heal. They can play around the rest turn. They can chip away at him and then finish him off. Like, he doesn't really excel in either defense if he doesn't have a turn to set up. Yeah, so I don't know. I think there's, you know, some limiting factors on Annihilape. But he's still obviously, like, if you bait your opponent to hit you over and over again, like, oh my god, he's just shitting on everything. And then you have, like, the final Gambit set with Stealth Rock or whatever, like a lead with Choice Scarf. He's got some other niches, but I think, like, the bulk up Rage Fist sets probably getting a little bit figured out. And again, Unaware Mons shut it down too, right? Skeledirge and Dondozo can not fear you too much if they're not hitting you, right? Like, if Skeledirge burns you, or if Dondozo gets enough curses up or has Rocky Helmet, like, you're literally never gonna break through them. All right. Then the last Pokemon on this list is Iron Hands, who I think is definitely appreciating in value. This Pokemon is pretty fucking good. He doesn't die to anything. He just lives any hit. He has solid typing, like electric fighting. You have an okay amount of weaknesses. You're weak to Psychic, Ground, and Fairy. All, like, pretty respectable types, especially, like, Ground and Fairy. But, yeah, you have, like, 500 plus HP. You can run Assault Vest. You can run pretty nasty coverage. The thing that sucks is that there's still no good physical electric move. He didn't get Plasma Fist, which really hurts on a guy like this. But, yeah, this mon's nasty. He can bulk up. He can Swords Dance. He can even just Choice Set, right? You could Choice Band with this guy and use him as more of a breaker. You could have Volt Switch on him as a pivot. You could just go 4 physical attacks with double stab. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think Iron Hands is really, really good. He's just so bulky. And also so strong. Now, that's my thoughts on these 42 Pokemon, really on these 38 Pokemon. I think the meta is in a very interesting spot. Like, I think we're starting to see it diversify a little bit. Like, the first week, it was kind of just like the same 10 to 20 Pokemon in different amalgamations doing their thing. Now I think we're starting to see people experiment more, figure out counterplay more, run specialized sets to counter certain things a little bit more. So I'm looking forward to the future of this meta. It's very interesting, and this is probably, like, one of the most exciting times to be playing it, right? When you can be the guy who figured out a cool new set, or just, like, watch the developments as they happen before things completely fall into place. I think they're slowly falling into place just a little bit, but there's still uncertainties as to whether mons like Cyclizar are going to be banned. You know, who in general is going to be banned, and what the best sets are to run and everything. So we'll see, guys. I think Annihilate is probably, you know, clearly off the radar at this point. Gholdengo might still be on it. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you think about this video, about this metagame. Just would love to hear your thoughts. And thank you so much for watching. Drop a sub to the channel. We'll be back with some more of this whenever I get around to it, I guess. But yeah, I hope you're enjoying, and peace.